the majority of Goyim have laid down. Give them their fries, give them their widescreen TV, bread and circus, give them their six-pack, give them the football. The Jews know this. Do you think the Jews sit around and watch football? They don't. We never watched football in my Jewish home. We were watching Meet the Press, the David Susskind Show, Jack Parr, Steve Allen. We weren't watching football. That was for the Goyim. If I said something stupid, I came from a very large outer family, uncles, aunts, so the whole mishpucha, we call it. If I said something stupid, my uncles would say, you have a goyish kup. That means you think like a goy.
Just recently, Brother Nathanael, I was also on InfoWars. I flew down to Austin and I was in studio with Alex Jones. And I pointed out this very obvious infiltration. I said, we're an occupied country. We don't have a government that's doing the bidding of the American people. They're not operating in foreign policy that is, indicative or supportive or in line with the founding of this country, the founding under God, freedom, individual liberty, that they're all bought and paid for. And, Alex told me that he thinks that the biggest threat is, extremist radical Muslims and the Chi-Coms. He kept on going back to that. And I said, well, I'm looking around objectively, and from where I sit, it doesn't look like the Chi-Coms have infiltrated the cabinet. It doesn't look like they have overtaken our State Department. It doesn't look like Chi-Coms or extremist radical Muslims are making foreign policy decisions or deciding how many millions of people we're going to bomb and how many trillions of dollars we're going to siphon through NGOs in order to activate the military-industrial complex and enrich the fat cats in the D.C. Beltway. It doesn't look like the Muslims or the Chi-Coms are responsible for opening up our border and infiltrating our schools with Marxist ideologies like critical race theory and the importance of transgenderism and homosexuality and the eradication of Christianity. It looks like Jews are doing that. So why do you suppose it is that he just keeps wanting to push back on that? I mean, even people that are supposed truth tellers, his whole network is called InfoWars. I got a lot of respect for what he's done in the past, but I'm very concerned about even, independent, so-called dissident, truth-telling, alternative media broadcasters. They seem to be very, very relaxed on this and afraid to talk about this. Why is that? To what do you attribute that?
Well, maybe he's got sponsors and donors who are Jews. But he said at the beginning of the show that he's been watching my videos for 15 years. Well, why does he keep watching them? I'll just leave it at that. But the benchmark is this. You can talk about Muslims, slander them, criticize them. You're not going to lose your job. Oh, you can criticize Catholics, slander them. You're not going to lose your job. You can talk about the Chinese and the Chi-Coms and their enemies, they're communists. You'll probably keep your job. Just say one word about the Jews. You're fired. Your reputation is ruined. What does that tell you? You know who controls and rules by those you cannot criticize. Voltaire said that in the 1800s. He was onto something.
So you said that the tunnel was a nothing burger. I want to talk a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more about what you mean about that. So when all of this media coverage started about these illegal tunnels in New York City, it kind of was curious to me, because if the media wants to give it attention, that sounds like a distraction. But these Hasidic Jews in New York City have their own ambulance service. They have their own police department. They defy, law enforcement of New York City. They felt entitled and emboldened enough to actually riot and fight back against the New York City police when they were trying to fill these tunnels. So why do you consider this to be a nothing burger? Why shouldn't we be concerned that, Hasidic Jews or Jews, the people who you've plainly stated are the enemy of our country, why are we supposed to not be concerned that they're running around under tunnels?
The Hasids are a very small minority within Jewry. I studied with them for 3 intense years, from the age of 20 to 23, with Sholom Posner. And any Hasid is listening to this, they know Sholom Posner. He's now deceased, not with his son, but with the big guy, Sholom Posner. I studied under him with the Hasids, with the Lubavitchers. They're called the Lubavitchers in Pittsburgh, where I grew up. So I still have communications with Chabad Lubavitchers. I still do. They agree with me about my position against secular Jews and how they're pushing transgenderism and how they're pushing homosexuality, which is against Torah. When I say Torah, I'm not talking Talmud. I'm talking about the 5 books of Moses, which I know backward and forward from a kid. And I know the prophets too, backward and forward from a kid. Now, what you have with the Hasids and what you have in Brooklyn, which I know I'm very familiar with because I even used to go to New York City because my parents were in the clothing business. Okay, so I'm very familiar with the whole realm. I'm just going to make a stupid nothing burger story just short as possible. Every Hasidic shul, synagogue, already has a legal tunnel underground. Already. It's called a mikvah. It's the ritual bath. They have it underground. It's totally legal because they get the permit for it. The reason it's underground because halacha, which is Jewish law, states that you have to have rainwater or natural water into that ritual water pool. So they have a way to get the rain from the earth up into the mikvah, and then they can fill the rest with tap water. They just have to have a smidgen of it. That's why it's underground in Hasidic synagogues. All right, so it's already there. Now, during the pandemic, because I have friends in Chabad, I don't want to say friends, people that still communicate with me, that I communicate with, now and again, because I was with them for so long. And I studied with a top guy, okay, Posner. When the pandemic hit, they did take the clot shot. Not a single Hasid internationally took that shot because they don't trust the government, because they're a state within a state within the state. They don't trust the government. They got their own rules. They got their own police cars, like you said. But they get permits for it. And so they pay a little money. They're in the diamond business in New York. That's $1 billion business. It's $100 billion business. Chabad is very wealthy. They got a lot of money. The diamond business is big. It's international. Okay, so I'm trying to make this as short as possible. They decided, okay, during this pandemic, they didn't take the clot shot. They had this social distancing. Hasids don't social distance. So they thought, let's take this tunnel and let's start moving it bigger in case we need to connect to the other Hasidic groups in Brooklyn. There's 3 major Hasidic groups, but I'm not going to get into it. So they started having some problems with a neighbor where the foundation started being compromised, and the neighbor complained. And the Hasids didn't do anything about it. So finally, the neighbor decided, a goy, to call a cement truck to get it fixed. The cops didn't call it. No cops were ever involved in this thing. Never. And the tunnel was only 50 feet long. They stopped building it. Okay, the cement truck comes, and the Hasids don't want any cement people coming into their shul and going underground. They don't want the goyim to defile their synagogue. So they started hassling the driver. They started hassling the cement workers. They called the police. Now the police come and Schwarzes are walking into their synagogue as a defilement. I don't have to say anything more, okay? Now the Jews gave some story. There was division. The Messianists who believed that Menachem Schneerson's the Messiah were digging the tunnel. This is just ridiculous. The whole community knew the Hasids about the tunnel, about the pandemic, what they wanted to do. And the media bought into it, and the story's over. I don't think it's worth talking about. There's no sensationalism. Mattresses were for children that were down there where they were digging, or when the women were being dunked in the water for the mikvah, and they threw some toys in, and the kids got rowdy, so they threw a mattress down. I don't care if it was dirty or what was on it. It's a nothing story. See, I deal with facts. This is a distraction. Who cares about the Hasids? They're not in really power. They're not.
It has to be a distraction. I mean, it was given all the attention by the mainstream media.
Of course,
I knew it was
but
fake.
it's over.
Yeah.
It's over. It's just another detraction.
Well,
okay?
what's not over is this infiltration into our country.
That's not over, and that's what I have to get back to. We have Merrick Garland. Mary Garfinkel, okay? Whose family changes to Garland. It's Garfinkel. Look at him. He's hideous looking. He's weaponizing the Justice Department against Christians. They hate Christians. I grew up with this. They want to destroy Christianity because the New Testament says the Jews crucified Jesus Christ, and St. Peter said, you crucified the Prince of Life, the just one. He said it 3 times in 3 preaching sessions. The Jews don't want to hear this. They want to destroy the New Testament. So Foxman of the ADL started calling it hate speech. Oh, yeah. So if the Goyim keep laying down, they will. They'll get it taken off the market, and they'll start closing down churches. Now, you at least have a voice. A racial Jew who's an Orthodox baptized Christian with a Russian Orthodox church who's willing to speak up and expose the Jew. No Jew should be in a position of authority. They have the deicidal curse. They're a crooked and perverse generation. They cannot do anything righteous. They want to destroy anything that the church teaches, any mores like holy matrimony, like the anatomy that God created us with, male reproductive organs, female reproductive organs, for the perpetuity of the human race. They want to destroy that for the Goyim, not for them, but for the Goyim, and especially the white Christians, because it's only the white Christians that can form a political bloc, which they once had, that can resist the Jewish bloc. And the Jews understand this. Now, people want to call me a white supremacist. I'm telling you what the Jewish agenda is. They have to destroy the white Christian. That's why they hate Trump. It's not so much him, because he's totally in their system. Sheldon Adelson was his top sponsor, donor, and he still has a lot of Jew donors, like Carl Icahn, okay? He still has a lot of them. He needs them. He has to have them. He has to have them too for his finances. They can destroy him in a minute with all his real estate holding. In 1 minute, they can destroy him. Now, he can't do anything, but they hate his followers. They see USA, USA, God bless America, the wrapping on the American flags. This makes Jews shiver. Only I understand this, only I. And I have to speak up. And I see the enemies of the church. I see the enemies of America. I see the enemies of humankind. They are Jews. They're not Zionists. They're Jews. We have to stop this word. It's a deflection. It's a detraction. The Jews love it when we say the Zionist control, the Zionist manipulation, the Zionist lobby. It's Jews. If there was no Israel, we would still have problems. There would still be transgenderism pushed by Jews. Homosexuality pushed by Jews. Central banks, counterfeit money pushed by Jews. The Israel thing doesn't really matter. There will always be Jews in power, Israel there, Israel not there. That's the issue. So all of them are in this thing that they think the Jews are the chosen people. How can they be the chosen people when Christ said your house is left unto you desolate? When St. Paul said they're contrary to all men and dogs. And Jesus said twice, they're of the synagogue of Satan, and they're the chosen people? It's just so full of errors, this evangelical Protestantism. They're supporting the Christ crucifiers. Do they have any humanity left in them? When this Johnson, who's just scum, the great Christian, my family prays at night. Are they praying for their children in Gaza, whose arms are cut off, who don't have a leg anymore? No. This scumball, Johnson, says there should be no ceasefire. He's scum. He's headed for hell. With all his praying, and I believe in Jesus. Faith without works is dead.
So the bombing
Faith
in
without
Gaza.
love, faith without love, 1 Corinthians 13, is dead.
The
Where's
bombing
the
of
love
Gaza
for a
and
human being?
Yeah. It makes you really question humanity, actually. We've identified this enemy. You've identified this enemy. We're not afraid to talk about this. I mean, we're very concerned about the future that we're leaving for our children. They're going to be fighting bloody wars. I mean, physical, kinetic wars, as we've seen that, the military-industrial complex has no problems supporting and committing war crimes all over the place in the name of spreading democracy. And this military-industrial complex, which is controlled by people who claim to be Jewish, they're not even practicing Jews, are they? I mean, are these people really Jewish? Shouldn't the word be Satanist?
No, I wouldn't say that. That's too much of a generalization. Just call them Jews. That says it all.
Okay. Well,
Because
I
a
think
Jew
it's satanic to
denies.
worship anything other than Jesus Christ.
They don't worship anything. They worship their race. Okay. You see, just the word Jew is you have the spirit of Antichrist. St. John said it in the 1st century. He wasn't talking about Muslims. He says, whosoever denies that the eternal Son of God, Jesus Christ, has come in the flesh, that's the incarnation, is of the spirit of Antichrist. In case you missed it the first time, he said it 3 times. Okay?
Right.
Just say the word Jew. Okay? What does the word Jew mean? It means he denies the Messiah. He denies the most beautiful person who ever lived, the God-man, Jesus Christ. And they are of the spirit of Antichrist. That's very serious. And they have the deicidal curse. So just the word Jew is loaded. So when I say Jews run everything, people should get scared. Oh my God, these people don't believe in Jesus. These people deny Jesus Christ. These people fight against Jesus Christ. These people are the enemies of the cross, says St. Paul. If anybody really wants to know the Bible and doesn't have a scissors that automatically cuts out these passages, which evangelical Protestants do. Wherever you have a Christian nation, where a nation identifies with the church, the Jew is a second-class citizen. Jews don't want that. They want to be on top over the Goyim.
We just funnel hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars into the corrupt country of Ukraine that's led by a Jew that calls himself Volodymyr Zelensky. If the Chi-Coms were doing all of this, it would be no problem to call them out. And then obviously we would come up with a plan to neutralize the threat that's being imposed on our country. What is the plan to neutralize the stated enemy now? I mean, can they be neutralized? Is this an attack that we just ultimately will end up just all dying and losing?
Well, we're not dying, we're losing. I mean, we're losing morally, we're losing culturally, we're losing our social adhesion. Mayorkas is not a Catholic. Mayorkas is Hispanic, and it has a Spanish-sounding name. He's a Jew. And he's just letting millions come in from all over the world because they want to destroy a white Christian composite majority in America. In 10 years, it'll be done. They want to destroy the whites. Now, I get back to this point. Goyim, wake up. You are being annihilated. Not physically, because you'll have your football, you'll have your fries, lots of ketchup you can pump out on your fries, okay? Because the Jew understands the Goy and, what satisfies them. They'll have someone that can put tattoos all over their body, too. Because the Goyim kind of like that. Trump ain't going to solve nothing.
No.
He's so tied into Jewish finance, they could destroy him. They raise his interest rates like they did to Henry Ford. He's finished. That's the control Jews have.
I mean, we can't look past the fact that every single candidate goes over there and kisses this wall, and that includes Trump. And this is where the clot shot came from, isn't it? I mean, aren't these the people who are on their 5th booster over there in Israel? That there was some sort of a mandate.
That's another story.
I mean, I definitely believe that there is absolutely 100% a physical attack happening right now. This is biological warfare.
It was saline. No one died in Israel. It's a saline solution. It was just salt water.
So why don't they want to take the shot that they say is so great?
They pretended they were doing it, They weren't doing it in Israel. I just said it. It was saline.
And that was to show everybody we're taking our boosters, we're taking this shot. You all should too. So this was part of a depopulation
Yeah,
plan or an
Moderna is
attack on
Israeli.
white Christians.
Moderna is an Israeli company.
Yeah.
And Jews are tied into the whole international pharmaceutical business, like Vivek. What I do, okay, Vivek, he says these things and he's against Haley, you know, whatever. Okay, but I look into what is his business? How did he rise to any kind of position of, you know, prominence? Well, he's in the pharmaceutical business. Jews. I said, Vivek's not going to do anything. Plus, he's got the wrong color of skin. You have to have a prop man. You got to prop someone up. The next president is going to be Newsom. He's got the look, and the Jews will use him.
Gavin Newsom will be the next president.
Oh yeah, I have no question in my mind. But even if Trump gets in, I mean, Alex Jones asked me, "What do you think? Is there a chance he's going to get in?" I said, "Well, I don't know. It'll either be rigged at the ballot box or rigged at the White House. Either way, the Jews got it tied up, especially with a guy like Trump with all his real estate holdings. I mean, they almost destroyed his Taj Mahal. So they had to bring this Rothschild guy in. I forget his name. They made him an economic advisor. He was working for bankruptcy issues for the Rothschild dynasty. I forget his name. So he made him an economic advisor, and he bailed Trump out from his Taj Mahal fiasco in Atlantic City. You see, I grew up in Judaism. I grew up in Jewry. My dad played the stocks. My uncle was a stockbroker. And the other uncle never worked a day in his life. He made millions in the 50s and 60s with stocks. So I know a little bit about, you know, international finance and the stock market. I know a little bit about it. So I go right to this thing, the money. I go right to the money.
And
it's not magic, like Alex Jones says the Jews have magic. I said, money is not magic. The money can buy a lot of things, including politicians. The only one who wasn't bought was Ron Paul. He should have never retired, made a mistake. No one listens to him anymore. In his Liberty Report, he's preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
Rand, what's he doing? He's wasting his time with Fauci. Fauci's not going to go to jail. Why is he wasting his time? End the Fed. We'll start with audit the Fed. Start there. So people can get warmed up to it. Well, what's this about? But Rand Paul has dropped the ball that his father started picking up and wrote a book about it. Fantastic book. End the Fed. No one's saying it anymore. They've given up on it. I haven't, but it's dry and it's boring. But that's the top of the food chain.
Yeah. The levers of power are all handed to Jews. The weapons for war that are killing millions of people. The financial contracts for war that contract to kill millions of people. Pharmaceutical companies that are unleashing weapons of biowarfare onto unsuspecting people and then using the Jewish-controlled media to tell them that it's safe and effective while they're dying in record numbers. It's really hard for me to believe, Brother Nathanael, that, you know, I think it's just us, isn't it? Isn't it just us that's saying this in the media? Everybody is so scared.
What kind of flavor of Jewish control do you want? You want a Democrat committee? You have the Democrat National Committee, whatever you want to call it, okay? Jews run the Republicans, Jews run Democrats. Yeah. And that's part of the program laid out by the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. Now, if anybody reads this and wants to call it a fraud or a forgery, I say it's impossible that a Gentile could write this. Impossible. Because there's so many layers of intrigue and deception that a Gentile who is more of an upright, forthright person could never contrive all these layers of intrigue. It was definitely written by Jews. There's no question about it. And I can take a Jewish intellectual and have him read it, and he'll agree with me. And I know some Jewish intellectuals. I do know some. And they would agree with me, and some of them actually support me. Because they agree with what I say. I have a fellow who was a PhD from Harvard. And I once said on my videos that it started off as a Presbyterian seminary and it's turned into a Jewish yeshiva. He started sending me money. He said, yeah, you're right. But he's an older fellow. He's my age, you know. He's in his 70s. I'm 73 going on 19. I
Well,
got
I
more
agree.
energy.
You know, I do agree with one thing that Alex Jones said. This is all very exhausting. But you know,
It is, but it doesn't exhaust me because I was exposed to this as a child. My dad used to take me to the Anti-Defamation League meetings run by B'nai B'rith. I saw it as a child because my father went to expose me behind the facade. That was my dad. Now, I'm not going to say he was great in all points because he would not allow me to look into and research who Jesus Christ was when I was denied that by my Shabbat school teachers and the rabbi. And my dad agreed with them. So I'm not going to paint him as, you know, Mr. Wonderful. But what he did do with me, my brother wasn't interested, neither my sister, but he saw that I was a questing child that I wanted to see what's deeper. He saw that in me and he would expose me to these things. And he would take me to, after the Shabbat service on Saturday in our Shabbat school, he'd take me upstairs to the big boys meeting, the big machers, the businessmen of the ADL B'nai B'rith meetings. And it was all about, not religion, politics. All right, this one's running for mayor. Is he going to be good for the Jews? Okay, well, the next Shabbat service or the next month, and the Jews would come from all over to these B'nai B'rith meetings, 200, 300, a big brunch, we called it, with lox and bagels, gefilte fish, sable fish, the whole thing. Okay. Well, this one's going to be a governor. Who's going to be good for the Jews? It was never who's going to be good for America. Never. Never heard it once. It was never who's going to be good for Pittsburgh. Who's going to be good for Pennsylvania? Who's going to be good for the Jews? That's how the Jews think. Now, I said last night to this Adam King, okay, who my estimation of him has gone down to zero, and it only proves that no Jew can ever be trusted. No Jew. Because we agreed behind the scenes it was going to be 1 minute and we were going to fight it out. And then he exposes this is what we talked about in private. Okay, it's just ad hominem after ad hominem. He just proved my point that Jews are not to be trusted. They're low lives, they're no good, and they cannot be righteous people. They cannot be forthright people. It's not in their nature. Okay, now I lost my train of thought, what I was talking about. Can you remind me?
well, what I'm looking for, Brother Nathanael, is a solution. What I'm looking for is a way to actually really, you know, try to neutralize any threat that could impact the lives of my children and millions of others here in this country. I mean,
All right,
and the way that you're describing it is that you know, if you're a politician, even if you had free and fair elections that weren't rigged and fake and stolen, even if you had a system that you knew was really working, nobody could actually ever garner the attention of the voting population unless they are funded, and they're only going to be funded if the people who are controlling every apparatus of our government agrees to fund them. And so the way that you're describing this is as almost unbeatable.
It's frightening. I see it so clearly, and I've seen this a long time ago. Okay. Now it's now rigged at the ballot box, mail-in ballots, and they're letting citizens, people coming across the border, and they pay them money to vote Democrat. But prior to that, let's take Ron Paul, for instance. The media kept on saying, well, he has some good things to say and hear this, but he's not electable. Well, what does that mean? Well, the Jews know how to use these kind of phrases, and they use it over and over on MSNBC, NBC, ABC, because they're all Jews. And it's in the papers, the Wall Street Journal, which is run by a Jew. Rupert Murdoch is a Jew. And if they're not Jews, they're financed by Jews. So it's Jews. So you have this thing going around constantly. Ron Paul has some good things to say. Libertarian is a nice idea, but he's not electable. Well, what the hell does this mean? It doesn't matter. He's just not electable. So the Jews will use this, and it sticks in the Goyim's brain because the Goyim can't think. The Goyim cannot think. That's why we need good leaders who can help the goyim who can't think, to tell them, don't take this clot shot. But we don't have this kind of people. So the goyim are at the coffee hour when at work. Well, I kind of like this candidate. What do you think of Ron Paul? Yeah, I like him, but
He's
not
unelectable.
electable. Yeah, you're right. He's not electable. What the hell does it mean? The Jews got the goyim all tied up in their brain. So it's already rigged. The media run by Jews. They're all Jews, and all the goyim and shiksas are run by Jews. I can't stand looking at the shiksas. I look at them and say, you are run by a Christ hater. You are run by a Christ crucifier. Shame on you. Well, they put a good-looking shiksa, and she sounds smart, and she asks these searching questions. See, a guy like me, I laugh, because I was exposed to this by my dad I was 6, 7 years old. The goyim cannot grasp what I grasp. They cannot. Only a racial Jew can understand a Jew. And I can see the deicidal curse in them. You take, for instance, this ogre, this hideous looking thing, who was the Supreme Court judge. And she kicked the bucket a few years ago. Mm-hmm. Why can't I think of her name?
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Okay. If you look at her in her 20s, rather attractive, not bad. Okay. As she grew older, this deicidal curse, which the Jews called down upon themselves, and they told Pilate, give us Barabbas, a murderer, an insurrectionist, and crucify Jesus, the most beautiful person who ever lived. That should tell you a lot about Jews. And Pilate wanted to let him go, and they scared him that they're going to report him to the Roman authorities. Okay, he got scared. And that's the Jews had power in Rome, but that's another story. Okay, so you'd look at her, not bad looking, rather attractive, but as she grew older, this deicidal curse comes out. And she becomes hideous. She becomes an ogre. She becomes ugly. She becomes devilish. It's the mark of Cain that God has shown to the goyim. Just look at their faces. Shouldn't that scare you, stupid goyim? Nah. Give me my fries. Oh, the football game. Turn that on. Oh, look at that. Oh, he's tackling this.
There's not another platform, in alternative media that's going to have this conversation. We just have to keep having it. We just have to over and over and over again. I mean, we have an enemy. We have an infiltration. We have an occupation. We're on the brink of being conquered. Our children's future is hanging in the balance, and, people are asleep. And until we reach the masses, until we realize remedy and a solution, until we can neutralize the threat that is imposed on our children right now, inevitably, imminent great bodily harm and slow death is being presented. You can call it not physical. Sure it is, because all those French fries and all that ketchup and all those processed sugars, this is all being done on purpose. Everything that the media tells you, everything that the Food and Drug Administration tells you, the HHS, all of these machines and mechanisms of infrastructure that are used to slowly kill our children. This is a physical war. This is a psychological war. This is an information war. This is a physical war. People are dying. People are being bombed right now, and people are actually cheering it on. And so until we reach the benchmark of success, which is neutralizing the threat, we won't stop having the conversation. We're not afraid.
They can't attack Jesus. That's impossible. But they'll attack his church. They'll attack his teachings. And they'll undermine everything that's good. The goodness of holy matrimony, the goodness of your reproductive organs that are to be used for the perpetuity of human race in holy matrimony. They'll attack that. These are very, very wicked people. Not a single one should be in authority. St. Constantine the Great understood this. St. Justinian the Great put it into law. No Jew can hold civil authority offices, finance, nor could they be in education. They understood this because they didn't use a scissor to cut out the Bible, and they saw the Jews gave up all their chosenness by crucifying their Messiah. And Jesus Christ said, your house is left unto you desolate. You will not see me until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. which is a messianic confession. We say, blessed is he who has come in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, the eternal Son of God, become man.